Chocolate bars, baby milk, and smiling kids on every ad. But behind Nestle's sweet image hides a truth so shocking, even its own CEO once said, "Water is not a human right." This is the company that turned poverty into profit and left millions paying the price for their health, their homes, even their children's lives. If you think this is just about candy, think again. The real cost of Nestle's success starts now. Mariam lived in a small village in Kenya, where the river was the only place to get water. Every morning, she walked barefoot down the dirt path, plastic jug in hand, just to bring back enough for her family. When her baby was born, a woman in a crisp white uniform visited the clinic. She looked like a nurse, but she was there to hand out Nestle baby formula, calling it modern and safe. The samples were free, and the nurse said it was better than breast milk. Mariam wanted the best for her child. She trusted the woman's kind smile and the shiny tin with pictures of healthy babies. But when the samples ran out, buying formula meant using less powder and more river water to make it last. The water was brown and smelled of mud, but there was no other choice. Within weeks, her baby grew weak. The child's belly swelled, skin hung loose on tiny arms, and fever burned through her body. Diarrhea came and would not stop. Mariam sat on the floor of the crowded hospital, holding her daughter close, watching helplessly as the nurses tried to help. The doctors said it was dehydration. They had seen it too many times. Babies fed formula mixed with dirty water, their tiny bodies unable to fight the sickness. Some survived. Many did not. Nestle's saleswomen, called milk nurses, wore uniforms to look like real health workers. They told mothers that breastfeeding was old-fashioned and formula was the smart choice. In Kenya, in 1974, and all across Africa, families like Mariam's were targeted. The company gave out just enough free powder to start a habit, knowing that mothers would have to keep buying to feed their babies. But most could not afford it. They stretched each tin by adding more water, making it weaker and more dangerous. The river water carried bacteria and disease. The formula, meant to nourish, became a poison. No warning came with the tin. No one explained that formula needed clean water, or that too much dilution could starve a child. The hospital filled with mothers like Mariam, clutching babies limp from malnutrition and infection. In the end, all she could do was hold her daughter and cry. Her story is just one among thousands. For every happy baby on a Nestle ad, there was a mother like Mariam, left with nothing but grief and a question: who is responsible for her loss? And while mothers mourned in silence, the company's profits surged. But this was only the beginning. The world would soon find out what Nestle was willing to do to protect its image and its money. Anger spread far beyond the villages. By the late 1970s, people around the world had seen the truth. Reports from hospitals, angry letters from doctors, and headlines in major newspapers called out the deadly formula marketing. In 1974, a group in London published a pamphlet with a title that could not be ignored: Nestle Kills Babies. The story exploded. Activists organized, demanding answers. Pediatricians and mothers joined together. They wanted justice for the babies who never had a chance. In 1977, the pressure boiled over. The Infant Formula Action Coalition, known as INFACT, called for a boycott of all Nestle products. Shoppers in the United States, Canada, Europe, and Australia stopped buying coffee, chocolate, and anything with the Nestlé logo. The message was simple: no more profits from dead children. Protesters marched outside supermarkets. Letters poured in by the thousands. The company's phone lines were jammed with angry calls. The boycott spread to over 60 countries. Nestlé tried to defend itself. Executives claimed they were only offering a choice, not forcing anyone to buy formula. But the evidence kept piling up. In 1979, the World Health Organization and UNICEF gathered experts from around the globe. They listened to stories from doctors and parents. The result was the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. This code banned free samples, gifts to health workers, and advertising that made formula look better than breast milk. It demanded that companies warn parents about the dangers of using formula without clean water. Nestlé promised to change, but sales told a different story. During the height of the scandal, formula sales surged by 45%. The company made millions as the world argued over blame. Activists refused to give up. They watched every move, ready to call out more lies. The boycott lasted for years, forcing Nestlé to sign the WHO code in 1984. But even then, violations continued in secret. The fight was not over. A line had been drawn. Ordinary people realized they could challenge a giant. The world had seen what Nestlé was willing to do for profit. But if they could sell deadly formula and get away with it, what would stop them from selling the very water people need to live? California. Law once treated water beneath the ground as if it belonged to whoever could pump it first. No matter how dry the rivers ran, companies with the right paperwork could draw millions of gallons for almost nothing. In 1998, a small change buried in state regulations let Nestlé keep pumping from springs in the San Bernardino National Forest, even after their original permit expired a decade earlier. The Forest Service charged Nestlé a flat fee, just $524 a year. That's less than a penny for every 1,000 gallons. Meanwhile, the company extracted enough water to fill Olympic pools by the thousands, over 3 billion gallons since the 1940s, with the heaviest pumping during California's worst droughts. The drought from 2011 to 2017 was the most severe in state history. Reservoirs dried up. Towns told families to ration water, let their gardens die, and skip showers. But Nestlé's trucks kept rolling. Their pipes sucked water from Strawberry Creek, even as the stream shrank to a trickle. While families in San Bernardino worried about their wells running dry, Nestlé bottled the spring water and sold it back to them for $1.50 a gallon. The water that cost them less than a penny to take was now out of reach for many locals. Local activists and lawmakers begged for answers. They asked why a multinational could profit while their own taps sputtered. But the rules protected Nestlé. The company argued they had historic rights to the water, and the state's slow-moving bureaucracy let them keep pumping. Reports from the California Water Board showed that Nestlé often took more than was allowed, sometimes nearly 10 times the sustainable limit. Yet fines were rare, and the water kept flowing into plastic bottles. For Nestlé, the math was simple. Each gallon pulled from the ground cost almost nothing. Each bottle on the shelf brought a huge profit. The company's bottled water division made billions, built on the back of cheap public resources. While drought gripped the state, Nestlé's business thrived. But as streams dried up and wells failed, anger grew in the communities left behind. People began to ask who really owned the water under their feet. And how much more would they lose before someone stopped the pumping? In Flint, Michigan, the fight for water turned into a fight against Nestle. Families in Flint woke up every day to brown water flowing from their taps, full of lead and poison, while children broke out in rashes and mothers boiled water just to brush their teeth. Nestle trucks rumbled down the highway, filled with clean spring water pumped straight from Michigan's ground. The company paid only $200 a year to take more than 500 million liters, enough to fill 200 Olympic-sized pools. Meanwhile, Flint families paid some of the highest water bills in America for water they couldn't even drink. Luis, a father of 3, worked nights at the General Motors plant. His youngest daughter, Maya, got sick from the tap water. She missed days of school, her hair falling out in clumps. Luis watched as Nestle's Pure Life bottles lined the shelves at the local store, his own town's water, sold back to him for $1 per bottle. He joined his neighbors in protest. They gathered outside the state capitol, holding up empty jugs and signs that read, "Water is a human right." The anger grew. More than 5,000 people marched through the streets, demanding that Nestle stop pumping Michigan dry. They signed petitions, sent letters to lawmakers, and called out the company for making millions while their children suffered. Local news cameras caught Luis shouting into a megaphone, his voice raw. "Our kids are thirsty, and all Nestle cares about is profit." Nestle defended itself with the same line every time: "We follow all state regulations and take water sustainably." But the numbers told another story. While families in Flint rationed water, Nestle's wells never slowed. The company's own documents showed how much was taken, how little was paid, and how much was made. The protest petitions stacked up on the governor's desk, each one a reminder that ordinary people were not giving up. The fight in Flint was not just about water. It was about who gets to decide what is fair and who gets left behind when a multinational comes to town. Luis and his neighbors stood together, refusing to be silent. Their voices echoed far beyond Michigan, inspiring communities across the country to question who really owns the water beneath their feet. But while Flint marched for justice, another secret was hiding behind the chocolate bars in every grocery aisle. Nestle's thirst for profit didn't stop at water. It reached all the way to the farms of West Africa, where children woke up before dawn to work in the cocoa fields. Kofi rises before dawn, his hands already marked by scars. At 12, he walks the dirt path to the cocoa fields of Côte d'Ivoire, a machete nearly as tall as he is dragging at his side. He was brought from Burkina Faso, promised work, but never paid. Each swing of the blade is heavy, sometimes slipping and cutting his skin. There is no doctor, no school, and no way home. If he slows, a man shouts and lifts a stick. Kofi works faster. He skips breakfast. At night, he gets a handful of dry maize and a mat on the floor. He is not alone. The fields stretch for miles, filled with children as young as 10, hunched over, hacking at trees. They work 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, then sleep in locked sheds. The air is thick with sweat and rotting fruit. The promise of wages is a lie. For every chocolate bar on a shelf, there is a child like Kofi, working in the shadows. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Labor reported 1.5 million children working in cocoa production across West Africa. Most of the world's chocolate comes from these fields. Nestle stands among the largest buyers. The company claims to fight child labor, but field reports reveal a different reality. Investigators have seen children carrying sacks heavier than themselves, exposed to pesticides, swinging machetes for hours. Some are trafficked from neighboring countries, sold by strangers or desperate families. The Department of Labor keeps a list of goods produced with forced or child labor. Cocoa from Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana has remained on that list for years. The International Labor Organization calls these the worst forms of child labor, a modern form of slavery. The problem persists. In 2 decades, the numbers have barely changed, despite Nestlé's promises to clean up its supply chain. In 2019, an audit found that 23% of the farms supplying Nestlé still failed to meet its own standards. The work is dangerous. Children lose fingers, suffer deep cuts, and breathe toxic chemicals. Their backs ache before they reach their teens. Many never learn to read or write. The world's sweet tooth is fed by their pain. The chocolate bar in your hand may have begun with a child's blood on the blade. Nestle insists progress is being made, but for Kofi, progress means nothing. His world is a machete, a field, and no escape. The scars on his hands remain long after the cocoa is gone. Nestlé's public promises sound reassuring. They say they care about children, about farmers, about doing the right thing. But behind those words, the numbers tell a different story. In 2009, Nestlé launched the Cocoa Plan, claiming it would clean up their chocolate supply chain. They hired outside firms to audit the farms and promised to stamp out child labor. Every year, glossy reports came out, showing smiling farmers and happy children. But when the real audits arrived, the truth slipped through the cracks. In 2019, an independent review found that 23% of the cocoa farms supplying Nestlé failed to meet even the company's own standards. That means nearly 1 in 4 farms still used child labor or broke basic safety rules. For every page of promises, there were fields where nothing had changed. When reporters asked how this could happen, Nestlé's spokespeople pointed to the size of the problem. They said it was too hard to track every farm, too complicated to fix overnight. But the company kept buying cocoa from those same farms. They kept shipping chocolate to stores around the world. The profits kept rolling in, while children like Kofi kept swinging machetes in the fields. In 2005, former child slaves from Mali took Nestlé to court in the United States. They told judges how they were trafficked as boys, forced to work without pay, beaten if they tried to escape. The lawsuit dragged on for 16 years. Nestlé's lawyers argued that the company could not be held responsible for what happened so far away. In 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed and dismissed the case. The judges said American courts had no authority over abuses that happened in Africa, even if Nestlé's money paid for the cocoa. The children who risked everything for justice walked away with nothing. Nestlé's executives celebrated the ruling as a victory for business. Every year, the company releases another report, promising to do better. But the audits still show failure, and the courts still let them walk free. For the children in the fields, nothing changes. The chocolate bars get sweeter, the profits get bigger, and the cycle begins again. If a company can break its own rules and escape justice, what else are they willing to do to protect their bottom line? Behind closed doors, Nestlé's most powerful executives gathered in hotel conference rooms, far from the eyes of the public. These weren't ordinary business meetings. Competitors from across the dairy and cereal industries arrived, each with their own briefcase, each ready to make a deal. The goal was simple: keep prices high, keep profits higher. In Geneva, the world's food giants sat around polished tables, passing papers back and forth. One memo, later leaked, spelled it out in plain language. All parties must agree to maintain minimum prices and coordinate market shares. No signatures, no official records, just a quiet understanding that families everywhere would pay more for the basics in their shopping carts. For over a decade, from 2000 to 2013, Nestle and its rivals formed secret cartels to control the price of milk in Spain. The plan was to squeeze dairy farmers, forcing them to accept less for their milk, while the companies pocketed the difference. Farmers couldn't fight back. If they complained, they lost their contracts. If they stayed silent, they lost money with every liter sold. The evidence finally surfaced in the form of internal emails and meeting notes. Regulators found proof of regular gatherings, coded language, price targets, even warnings to destroy records after each assembly. One year, a Nestlé executive was handed an envelope at a breakfast meeting. Inside, the new price list for the entire country. In 2024, Spain's highest court fined Nestlé €6.86 million for its role in the milk cartel. The court's report named the years, the companies, and the harm done to thousands of farming families. Similar cartels had operated in other countries, but the Spanish case left no doubt. This was not competition. This was collusion. The fines were a drop in the bucket compared to the billions Nestlé made. Grocery bills crept up, not because of bad weather or higher costs, but because a handful of men in suits decided it should be so. Consumers never saw the meetings or the memos. They just paid more, every week, every year, while Nestlé's profits surged. For Sofia, a dairy farmer in Galicia, the fallout was personal. She watched her family's earnings shrink, her father's hands shaking as he read the latest contract. The milk they poured into Nestlé's trucks was worth less and less, but the cartons in the supermarket never got cheaper. The secret deals had stolen her family's future. One question hangs in the air. If Nestlé can rig the price of milk and cereals without anyone noticing for years, what other secrets are hiding in plain sight? Shoppers walk the aisles, grabbing milk, cereal, and yogurt without a second thought. But hidden in every price tag is the cost of secret deals made in boardrooms far away. In the United Kingdom, grocery bills jumped by 12% during the years Nestlé and its rivals fixed prices. That's not just a number on a chart. For the average family, it meant losing nearly $200 a year, money that could have paid for a week's food, a school trip, or the heating bill in winter. Sofia, the dairy farmer from Galicia, watched her family's world shrink with every supermarket visit. Her father's hands shook when he saw the receipt. Eggs, bread, cheese, everything cost more, even though the milk they sold brought in less and less. The cartel's profits came straight from pockets like theirs. The price on the shelf rose quietly, never with a warning and never with an apology. Shoppers, like Sofia's neighbors, felt the squeeze, but never saw the cause. They blamed the weather, the government, or just bad luck, not knowing that a handful of executives had decided how much everyone would pay. In Spain, the court documents spelled it out. From 2000 to 2013, Nestlé and other companies met in secret, setting minimum prices and dividing up the market. The result was higher bills for everyone, but especially for families who counted every penny. When asked, Nestlé denied any wrongdoing. They said prices went up because of global markets or supply chain costs. But the fines told another story. In 2024, Spain's highest court ordered Nestlé to pay 6.86 million euros for their role in the milk cartel. It was a small price for a company making billions, but for ordinary people, the damage was already done. For Sophia, the numbers felt personal. She remembered her mother's face as she put back a bag of apples at the checkout, choosing between fruit and milk. The cartel's greed reached into every kitchen, every packed lunch, every dinner table. And while the companies counted their profits, families counted their losses. The pain didn't stop at the register. Nestlé's games with prices left a mark on every household. But the company's hunger for profit was just getting started. Next, they set their sights on something even more dangerous, turning children into lifelong customers, one sugary bite at a time. In the boardrooms of Vevey, Switzerland, Nestlé's top marketers studied children like a science experiment. They wrote memos with a single goal: hook kids young, keep them loyal for life. One leaked document from 1994 spelled it out. Kids first was the directive. Every cereal box, every snack, every ad would target children's eyes and taste buds. The sugar wasn't an accident. It was the plan. Nestlé's team of food engineers worked to find the so-called bliss point, the exact mix of sugar, salt, and crunch that makes a child crave more. They packed their cereals with up to 12 grams of sugar in just one serving, sometimes more than a glazed donut. The labels hid behind words like whole grain and fortified with vitamins. But the real recipe was simple: sugar first, nutrition last. Cartoon animals danced across cereal boxes, smiling and waving from every shelf. Colorful mascots like the Nesquik bunny and Cookie Crisp wolf called out to kids in every commercial break. The ads ran during Saturday morning cartoons, promising fun, adventure, and a sweet reward for breakfast. Parents saw happy faces and trusted the brands. Most never noticed the fine print. Inside the company, marketing executives bragged about how easy it was to win kids' loyalty. Catch them before age 10, and you have them for life, one manager said. The company held focus groups with children, testing new flavors and shapes to see which ones disappeared fastest from the bowl. Every tweak was measured, every reaction logged. The goal was not health, but habit. Nestlé's strategy went beyond the grocery aisle. They sponsored school events, handed out free samples, and paid for cartoon tie-ins. In some countries, they even pushed sweetened baby foods with extra sugar, products the World Health Organization warned against. The company spent millions on advertising, making sure their cereals were the first thing kids saw in the morning and the last thing they begged for at the store. Behind the friendly mascots and bright colors, the truth was hidden. The sugar rush left kids bouncing off the walls, then crashing. Doctors started to notice more children with cavities, stomach aches, and trouble focusing in school. But the profits kept rolling in, and the marketing campaigns grew bolder. What began as a simple bowl of cereal turned into a lifelong craving for sugar. Nestlé's memo had worked. The company had built a generation of customers, one spoonful at a time. But the cost would show up in ways no ad could hide. The numbers tell the story hiding behind every sugary snack. In the 1970s, childhood obesity in the United States was rare. Only about 5% of kids were considered obese. By 2022, that number had jumped to nearly 20%. That's millions of children struggling with their health, their bodies growing heavier each year. The change didn't happen by accident. Nestle's food scientists spent decades perfecting the bliss point, the exact mix of sugar, salt, and fat that makes a snack irresistible. One study by Dr. Maya tracked what happened when kids ate Nestle's cereals and snacks for breakfast. She found that children who started their day with these products ate 1.3 times more snacks and sweets than those who didn't. The cravings didn't stop at breakfast. The sugar kept them coming back for more, meal after meal. Doctors saw the results in their clinics: more children with diabetes, more kids with high blood pressure, hospitals filled with young patients who couldn't catch their breath, their bodies fighting to keep up. Parents tried to help, but the odds were stacked against them. Nestle's products filled every shelf, wrapped in bright colors and cartoon faces. The labels promised whole grain and vitamins, but the first ingredient was almost always sugar. The World Health Organization warns that children should eat less than 10 grams of sugar a day. A single serving of Nestle's popular cereals can have more than that, sometimes twice as much. The company claimed to have reformulated its products to cut sugar, but independent checks showed many cereals were still packed with it. Nestle's public relations team pushed stories about healthy options, but the numbers told the truth. In countries where Nestle's snacks were most popular, rates of childhood obesity and diabetes surged. Behind every sweet commercial was a real cost: kids trapped in bodies that hurt, families watching their children's health slip away. Profits kept growing, fueled by addiction that started young. Dr. Maya's study warned that the damage would last a lifetime. For Nestle, that meant lifelong customers. For everyone else, it meant a growing epidemic that no one could ignore. Billions of dollars made, and a generation left to pay the price. Right now, Nestle controls more than 70 major bottled water brands and profits from global food systems shaping billions of lives. As droughts worsen and child labor persists, the power to choose what we buy and who we empower matters more than ever. The line between profit and humanity is drawn every time we open our wallets. What side are you on? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.